Alright everyone, welcome back to another video. Last time we left off talking about the assassination of Admiral Dardon. We're now on to Allied air supremacy makes itself felt in the desert. December 13th to 15th, 1942. British air power in the desert. Following the routing of Rommel's armies at El Agheila on December 13th, the RAF kept up almost incessant day and night attacks on fast retreating columns along the coastal road in Tripolitania. Yeah. Whole lines of enemy transports and supply vehicles were wrecked, ammunition dumps were blown up, and airfields strafed from low levels. On December 15th, day-long raids were carried out by British and American bombers on closely packed enemy columns about 70 miles west of El Agheila. At a place near Marble Arch, blazing enemy vehicles caused a huge traffic block, which delayed the retreating column for many hours. Opposition from the Luftwaffe was negligible, but 2 enemy fighters were shot down. These far-reaching air attacks were made possible by the fine work of the RAF ground forces in clearing advanced airfields so recently in enemy hands. What? Yeah. Yep. At one airfield, 2,000 mines were removed from a landing field, which, within 48 hours, to make it serviceable for Allied bombers. The pictures show above twisted remains of aircraft on an enemy landing field in Libya. I mean, yeah, look at these. These are just absolutely obliterated. They got bombed out of existence. It's not surprising. The amount of attacks that were on these places, it's not surprising these got turned into hunks of just junk. And right, bullet-ridden Italian fighters and wrecked hangars at Castel Benito. And you can see the fighter planes, they're all grounded and destroyed in some way. And you can see the hangar there is just frame. There's not even anything left of it, really. It's just a frame. So you can tell that kind of shows you how effective this bombing was. American planes helped defeat the Afrika Korps. December 1942. Headaches for Rommel. Huge American B-25 bombers fly low over their camp after taking off on a mission somewhere in North Africa. Bombers like these softened up Rommel's Mareth line and played a large part in bringing about the Axis defeat in Tunisia. Despite all Allied efforts, the short and easily maintained air and sea lines of communication between Sicily and Tunisia permitted the rapid buildup of Axis forces. However, his greatest advantage lay in the possession of all-weather airfields, as the development of rainy seasons rendered fighter planes support of Allied troops impossible. Yeah, right here, the enemy having something you don't, it's like it just said, it shows why the enemy was able to bounce back a little bit. If they have all-weather airfields and you don't, well, you're not going to get your planes off when it rains and it's muddy. Those planes are going to be stuck in the mud. But if the enemy doesn't have that problem, they can just run circles around you. They don't have to even worry about your planes giving opposition to them. Now, they will have to worry about anti-air guns, but it's a lot less to deal with than that and enemy fighters. A picture of desolation in North Africa. December 14th, 1942. Shattered batteries. Blasted by demolition charges, the muzzles of these French 130 millimeter guns present a picture of desolation on Pointe de la Tour, outside Safi, French Morocco. These guns were wrecked by their crews after their positions had been shelled by U.S. warships. Upon the cessation of hostilities in French territory, General Eisenhower's forces were faced with numerous and pressing problems. Harbors had to be cleared of sunken ships, wharfs and docks repaired, neglected and slender lines of rail communications had to be developed, and civilians provided for and started on the way to reconstruction. Yeah, I mean, the Americans are kind of bogged down in North Africa. One, because we're just not used to the war yet. A lot of American fighters just aren't as skilled as the hardened Germans or the hardened Italians. And in terms of allies, we're not as skilled as our allies, the British. Well, we'll just say the British Empire, because, I mean, it's everyone. Or even the French. And so when we get to these places, we think we can kind of just do things, but we find it's a lot harder. So then we do have things that bog us down, like this, where, like they said, they have to clear the harbors and things like that, and it just bogs us down even more. And so it leads to why some of the American early starts are a little bit failures. But we will get our footing eventually and be a effective fighting force. General MacArthur's men capture Buona Village. December 14th, 1942. Japanese defeated in Papua. After a month of the most desperate fighting in Southwest Pacific, American troops captured Buona Village on December 14th. During the night of the 13th, a Japanese convoy attempted to land a relieving force from barges, but practically all the enemy were drowned or killed at the beaches by the heavy strafing inflicted by waves of Allied bombers. Fighting continued, however, in the small but strongly held Japanese salient around the Buona mission, from which the enemy were not finally cleared until January 2nd. The photographs show, top left, American reinforcements landing on Papua. So here we can see all these reinforcements landing in good order, lots of supplies, things like that. And then at the bottom left, we have Australian infantry in action. You can see them prepared, moving up. We have, that would probably be their commanding officer, I would assume, of this small unit. There's a tank that has been blown out. You can see track damage, things like that. And then over here, we have the shore at Buona Mission strewn with dead Japanese. You can see a lot of Japanese that tried to get on the beaches, but were repulsed back by the Allies. The 8th Army outflanks the enemy at Wadi Matratin, I think that's how it's pronounced. December 16th to 18th, 1942. Advance into Tripolitani. Yeah, sure. On December 16th, the 8th Army cut the retreating Afrika Korps in two by brilliantly outflanking movement at a place called Wadi Matrani. Matrin? I'm not sure. About 60 miles beyond El Agalia. This operation, which completely surprised the enemy, was actually planned by General Montgomery before the Battle of El Agalia, after the British intelligence officers had discovered a forgotten desert track running to the south and striking north to the coast road, again along the Wadi Martin. It was carried out by New Zealand troops under the command of General Freiberg, VC. For 3 days, the infantry advanced more than 100 miles over the desolate and sand dunes and rocky Wadis. Supported by strong force of artillery, tanks, and armored cars, The trapped Axis rearguard, which was entirely composed of German troops, fought desperately in its attempt to break through the British armored ring. But although a few enemy troops and tanks managed to escape and join their main force further west, heavy punishment was inflicted by the New Zealanders. The enemy lost at least 20 tanks, 30 guns, and several hundred motor vehicles. 500 Germans were taken prisoners. One of the most important results emerging from this action, according to Cairo Dispatch, was the capture of, or destruction of, a very considerable amount of Rommel's motor transport, and also appreciable numbers of his rearguard. On December 18th, the 8th Army, after mopping up operations, continued its advance from Wadi Maritime and came to within 30 miles of Sirte, almost halfway between Benghazi and Tripoli. The remarkable action picture on the left shows a small force party of Australian infantry with bayonets and firearms advancing into the desert through a protective smokescreen after being detailed to capture a German strongpoint on the way towards Tripoli. So, yeah, this action completely, like I said, completely surprises the Germans. They get cut in half. Their rear guard is obliterated, more or less. And the New Zealanders show, look, we are effective fighters. And they, like a lot of the, we just say British a lot of times during these actions. But, you know, there are the troops from the other countries, from the Dominion, and the Anzacs and things like that. They do great work here. And they show, hey, look, we can fight with the best of them, which is something nowadays we'd see as like kind of like, oh, well, you know, it's, of course they can. But back then, a lot of these places tried to prove themselves. And this is, for them, a big proving moment of like, hey, look, see, we can fight just as hard as anyone else. And this will help bring Montgomery up in the eyes of the British public and just the public in general, because look at this. He smashed Rommel's forces in an outflanking maneuver that outsmarted him, and bring a lot of praise to his name. But that's going to do it for this video. If you guys liked the video, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a comment. Tell me what I can improve on. I always appreciate your feedback. And as always, subscribe. It really does help out the channel. Thank you.